fear, perfectionism, control, comparison, exclusion, and unworthiness. My guest today says these are some of the myths women hold on to that keep them from being who they were created to be. Counselor, speaker, and author of the book Unstuck, Kim Anderson is here today to help us all let go of what's holding us back and find our passion and purpose in our second half of life. Who do we want to be once our kids are grown and out of the house? How do we find out? This is not an end, it's a new beginning, and Kim is here to help us get on the right path. Prepare to feel inspired. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Kim Anderson. Okay. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I love being here with you.
Today, I have Kim Anderson here. Kim is, I'll introduce you just a little bit. You are the author of the book Unstuck, Letting Go of the Myths Keeping You from Who You Are Created to Be. And you're also the founder of Elevate Moms, which I will ask you to talk about a little bit later. But I cannot wait for everybody to just hear what you have to say, because I think most of the listeners are majority moms who are either currently feeling or at some point in their life have felt stuck. Yeah. So you are here today to help us all figure out how to
get unstuck.
To get unstuck. What made you write the book?
Well, just as a therapist, I have just seen women coming into my office feeling defeated, feeling lonely, feeling like they're the only ones in the world that are feeling that way. And a lot of the kind of the symptoms that they were exhibiting were symptoms that I just felt like were stuckness, that were areas in their life that they were maybe not telling themselves the truth, that they were maybe just making things up along the way just because it felt like it fit the narrative for them. The safe thing, feelings of perfectionism, comparison. With social media, we see everybody else's highlight reels. And a lot of times we're left to feel like we are kind of in this space on our own. And
was it mostly moms?
Mostly. I think it's across the board. I think you see it with all women across the board. But I primarily work with moms. And so that's where I was seeing it. So I just thought it was time. It was time to kind of conquer those myths, the lies, and just
you speak a lot. You do a lot of public speaking to women's groups or about how to get. Is that the concept for the most part, is how to get unstuck, if you had to kind of?
It is, and how to really raise confident kids, how to raise strong kids, how to, as moms, show up the way that we need to. We kind of have this lie right now that we have to be all things to everybody, and we're burnt out.
Do they kind of go hand in hand, raising confident kids and also being unstuck at the same time? Is it important for both to be taking place at the same? Can both take place?
Yes,
at the same time.
Yes, as moms. Absolutely. Well, because when we're stuck, our kids face the challenges of that, right? When we're stuck, our kids aren't getting our best versions. They're not getting the strength that we need to give them. And so it's our job to do our work first as moms, so that we can then pour out into them and we can help send them off into the world.
Is there a way to know if we're stuck? Or do you just feel it?
I think you just feel it. I think you just know that you're not living according to your purpose. You're not living in line with your passions and your strengths and the vision, the dreams that you've had for your life. I think we all
somehow kind of get just thrown to the side. Well, and you and I were talking about earlier, it's like, I hope we're raising a generation of girls who, it's more do whatever you want. And that
follow
actually,
your dreams.
And that actually is true. Versus, I don't know, I just feel like when I grew up, it was not so much of the follow your dreams. I think when you're little, they're like, you can be whatever you want. And then kind of grow up, and there was kind of that expectation of what you would do. You would get married and you would probably stay at home and raise your kids. And that was you.
Right. Well, the paths weren't as wide and vast as we were growing up either. Technology's just opened so many different opportunities.
For career-wise, you mean?
Yeah, for career-wise, and just the opportunity to, do we want to start having kids younger? Do we want to wait longer? And I think now, because so much is brought to our doorstep, we see what could be for our daughters. In a way that our parents couldn't see for us.
Right. I like that. Okay. So in your book, Unstuck, there are 16, is that right? 16 myths that you cover in the book. We are not going to go through all those today because that would be a very long podcast. But I wanted to highlight, in my opinion, when I looked at them, I guess, and it could have honestly just been like, this might be my own podcast, but just what I kind of resonated with. And I feel like for the most part, a lot of other moms would resonate with. So I'll just kind of read the ones that stuck out to me, and maybe you can kind of touch on them, the things that might be holding us back. The first would be fear.
Yeah.
Fear of
anything, right? Fear is such a powerful tool. I was watching, not a tool, fear is such a powerful force, right? Bob Goff was speaking here in Nashville one time, and he just said fear is a punk, and it's a punk. It keeps us stuck because we buy the lie that we can't handle what's on the other side of it. And so when we look back, a lot of research has been done over the years about what it looks like to stay stuck and to stay in this place of learned helplessness, and how in that place we can be more afraid of going to the other side, right? And getting to the other side than we'll deal with the pain that we're experiencing, because that fear of the unknown is so much worse.
Is that from because of how we were raised?
Well, it is. And so if we have parents that raise us that the world is bad, we go to a playground when we're little, and they say, don't touch that. You could get hurt. You're gonna fall over. Don't go too far from me. We can have that instilled in us. Some of us, it could be our personalities. It's nature versus nurture all the time.
Right.
And so it's hard to know. But when we are growing up in an environment like that, it's really important that we kind of identify, that those are the messages that are put over us.
Okay. Perfectionism.
Yeah. So perfectionism.
We're laughing because I already know what you're going to say, so that's why I'm starting to laugh. It actually wasn't, when I read it, I was like, that's never really how I've thought of perfectionism.
Yeah. Well, and perfectionism can show up in so many different ways, right? But perfectionism really is fear. If we think about it, it's the fear of being judged. It's the fear of being blamed, and the fear of having to feel shame.
Okay.
And so when we're in a perfectionistic space, then it is, so really quickly,
What? Yeah, of
I need
course.
to get some water.
You can have water whenever you want. This is a very casual podcast. If you need to get up, go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all fine. Yes.
So with perfectionism, our daughter, Kyla, she's about to graduate college. She came out as a perfectionist. So she came out, and she had all of her, when she was little, she would organize all of her books by rainbow color. She would organize all of her animals. She would organize her closet. And she loved to have structure and organization in her life. And she really has a perfectionistic spirit. However, if she switches and steps into kind of toxic perfectionism, she can really get caught up in it.
What's the difference between toxic and regular?
So toxic perfectionism is when it just becomes our identity and our worth tied up in the perfectionistic mindset. And so, I use her as an example because we all, she came out that way. I'm a very unorganized parent, and so she had to deal with all of my unorganization. And it made a big difference when we could kind of go in and go, okay, this is who you are. This is your identity. But to take perfectionism and to make it about us and to make it about our value is where it starts going awry.
Yeah. And I think probably a lot of moms maybe struggle in perfectionism as a mom, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom.
Absolutely.
And you have gone, I speak for myself, when you've gone from working to being a stay-at-home mom, which is now your job, right? And so it's like to be that perfect mom where your house looks perfect and your kids are clean and there's no problems here. And then on the inside, you're maybe falling to pieces. But bless everybody who's going to think you have got it together because it's like that fear of maybe being found out. You don't have it together.
Right.
You're not the perfect mom. Or,
right. Well, and today, we see everybody else's highlight reels.
Yeah.
And so we see the perfect birthday party that she threw for her
Right.
1-year-old.
Oh, the birthday parties
not even
are
going to remember
so
it,
much.
right?
They're not. Please stop spending so much
No.
money on your birthday parties.
Or the amazing dinner that she made from scratch with ingredients from her organic garden.
Yeah.
And you're just happy to make it through the Chick-fil-A drive-through. It is hard being a mom in today's world.
Yeah.
And so we can put that narrative over us. We can buy that lie. And, Brene Brown said it so beautifully. It's like,
I love Brene Brown.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that if we can look and act perfect, then we can minimize and we can avoid those feelings of blame, of shame, of judgment, of criticism. And if we grew up in a home where we had critical parents, again, it's really, really hard to not connect that to love, right? To not feel like if I'm not perfect, then I won't be valued. And love is conditional.
Yeah.
And so it's just our job to stop and do an assessment. What is that about? And how do we find a balance between self-improvement and self-compassion where we can give ourselves grace?
Yeah. And I think for me, it also was, I think if you've ever been a stay-at-home mom, it's like, it's both sides of the coin, I'm sure, but going becoming a stay-at-home mom and then going out into social situations. And people would say, they would meet my husband or he would introduce me somewhere for work and they'd say, oh, and what do you do?
Yeah.
Or, oh, do you work? And it was that instant pit in my stomach. My throat would and I'd not really know what to say because you don't say, oh, I'm a homemaker. Who wants to say that? And so I would say, well, no, I stay at home with my kids. And then he would start overcompensating and being like, oh no, but she does this and this and this. And I was like, okay, it's too much. But it was I felt like for me, that was my worth was having this people go, oh, but look, you cook all the time. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but you have a full-time career, right? You're impressed with the fact I homemade chicken and pasta tonight. Yeah. I'm impressed that you're flying all over the world working. So I think it's so easy to just look at another mom's life and think she's doing it better than you.
Right. Well, and that goes into comparison, right? When we are
Number
comparing
3.
ourselves.
Comparison.
Not to say
but it's true.
But it's true.
Yeah.
We look left and right and we're evaluating based on our perception of their lives. And our perception of their lives is always wrong.
Always.
We don't see behind the curtain all the burdens that other people are carrying, the private battles that they're facing. And so then we feel less than and we feel worthless. Yeah. And then we try and numb out and we scroll on social media for 24/7 and we do all the things to try and make those hard feelings go away. Yeah. Because
do men do the same?
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
To the same degree?
Well, as far as comparison or social media.
Well, yeah. Who knows about social media?
Maybe it's more
just the myths, the myths that they tell themselves. This the fear and perfectionism. Do you think they do compare?
Yes.
You think they compare?
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's usually a little bit different.
Okay.
From the research that I've read, it's more like a totem pole, right? Where men are kind of walking into a room and trying to assess where do they fall on that totem pole and are they enough? Do they measure up?
In terms of career?
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sports, something.
Whatever it is. Okay. Yeah. Whatever the arena is.
The arena.
And so whatever that arena is, they're wanting to make sure that they measure up, right? And so for us as women, it's a little bit more, are you enough? For men, it's do I measure up, and do I meet the mark?
Okay, got it. Control.
Yeah. Well, control again comes out of fear. So much comes out of fear, right? When we buy this lie that if I can just have control, then everything will be okay. It's a way to ward off anxiety, to try and feel less anxious about the unknown and about what might be coming our way. And so if we can just control the environment around us, then we can rest and we can get back to that kind of that window of tolerance that we had talked about, this space in our nervous system. Where
speak about that, the window of tolerance, because you were telling me about that earlier.
Yeah. So the window of tolerance is this space in our nervous system where when we're in it, we can have peace and joy and patience and kindness and goodness, and we can just be calm and relaxed. Okay. And then something happens that startles us, that stresses us out, maybe, you're driving down the road at night and all of a sudden a Mack truck is coming at you and it's on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
So you swerve off the road and you get out of your window of tolerance, right? You're in hyper arousal. And that's where our nervous system kicks into fight or flight. And we're getting ready. We're mobilizing for the threats that are coming our way. And then under the window of tolerance is hypoarousal. And that's where we just kind of get checked out and numb. We collapse. And both situations make us feel out of control. We feel out of control when we're in our window of tolerance. So we're going to do whatever we can to get back there.
To get back in your window of tolerance.
And it works until it doesn't, right? It works until it gets in the way and we become neurotic. We overmanage. We handle people the way that we don't want them to, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these strategies that we have for surviving in life serve us until they get in the way. They're kind of like this great armor of protection.
Yes. And you think you're doing good for people.
Yes.
My husband always says that he says, you can't handle it when a plan
doesn't
changes.
go
Well, not that it doesn't go my way, but that things out of our control. The way
you thought it was going to go.
Because I am a super planner. So I mean, when we go on a vacation, I have no one else plans, just me. And that's fine by me until something throws like a little spoke in the wheel. And then it's like, then the sky is falling. And he's like, you need to learn how to come back from
because
from
at that moment, you're out of your window of tolerance, right?
Because I am very out of it.
And the story you're probably telling yourself is, it's not going to be okay. I can't handle it. Like, I'm just making this up.
It's not going to turn out the way I planned.
It won't turn out the way I
planned. And then what will that look like?
Yeah.
And the fear of that is, and I mean, spoiler alert, it always ends up being perfectly fine.
Right.
But
But it goes back to fear, right? And at the end of the day, can I handle this hard thing? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the question that we want to ask ourselves. Can I handle it? Can I handle it if it doesn't go my way?
Yeah. Okay. Unworthiness.
Yeah. I think
that's a hard one.
It is, and as women, and again, back to social media, not to pick on social media too much because it's got so much good, but it's easy to feel unworthy when we're looking at, again, everybody else's perfect lives, everybody else's amazing kids on the honor roll while you're just struggling to get yours, to the tutor. Everybody else's, victories. It can look really hard.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to, where do you get your worth from, right? Who says? Who says that you're not enough? Who says that you're too tall, you're too short, you're too heavy, you're too skinny, you're too, like all the things that we as women bog ourselves down with, all of these lies.
Yeah.
For me, my worth comes from from my faith, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, at the end of the day, I can turn to that and I can say, I know I'm enough because he says I'm enough, right? But at the end of the day, we've got to make a decision about who is it that we want to be and make sure that we are not buying the lie that just because our life doesn't look like somebody else's, that it's not beautiful, right? Or just because she's winning doesn't mean I'm not.
Do a lot of women, you think, carry that feeling of unworthiness from childhood, maybe they had one or two parents that kind of made them feel like that growing up, or maybe they were, I don't know, bullied or, like the experience. Do they carry that even unknowingly into mothering?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everything goes back to our stories, right? I do a lot of story work with clients because everything goes back to our stories. So where we are now is based on our genes and our life experiences. And so we come into the world predisposed in certain ways, right? Like those people who are more, like my daughter I mentioned, who's more likely to be perfectionistic, right? But then it's the nurture, the pressure cooker that we grow up in, right? That petri dish that we grow up in. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've often just kind of thought that, like, that how many times you don't even realize things affected you when you were younger, and then maybe something is like a trigger for you. Snaps you out of your window of tolerance. Exclusion was one that I was kind of surprised by.
Yeah, exclusion is hard because, again, back to social media, we see exclusion. where we used to not, like when we were growing up, unless someone talked about it at the lunch table the next day, we didn't know if we weren't invited to someone's house or we weren't included in a party. Yeah. But now we see everybody's everything, right? We see all the homecoming pictures. We see all the, teens and tweens when they're, sitting at home, they see all of their friends at the mall together or hanging out somewhere at Sonic. And so they know if they weren't invited. And so an uninvited feeling is so painful.
Even as a 40, 50, 60-year-old woman. Yeah.
Yes. The stories that I hear over and over of pain from exclusion are heavy. And so one of the things I really like to lean into is it true? Right? So sometimes exclusion is true. Sometimes you were excluded. And if so, can you handle it, right? What do we do? How do we find safe friends? How do we find the friends that we're meant to be with? Because we can't find the right friends while we're hanging out with the wrong friends, right? The friends that do exclude us. And so I want to encourage people to find their tribe and to show up and to step into new territory if they can.
Which is probably scary as like the older you get too. I mean, if you say just like move to a new town, new city, new country, and you're, 30, 40, 50, it's like, how do you find your tribe?
Right. Well, and the older we get, the less connections we have. It's really easy to make friends when your kids are in school.
Yes.
And you're standing together, at the PTA meeting, or you're on the sidelines at the soccer field, right? And so we kind of have built-in cohorts of friendships in that season of life. And then as we're empty nesters now. And so as we step into this season, you're not showing up with all the people that you have things in common with as much anymore.
It's easy to be friends with someone when you're forced to see them all the time.
Yes. Yeah. But I think it's important that we challenge that exclusion thought with again, is it true? Because a lot of times we can make up those stories about exclusion when we weren't actually intentionally excluded. And it might be that that group of women was just having lunch together because they're on the same committee and they're working on a school project together, right? And it looks like everyone got together and didn't invite you, but it wasn't true.
And did they actively say, we're all getting together and let's not invite Jane? Probably not.
We do not want her here. Exactly.
Right. We don't like her.
Yeah.
We're going to exclude her.
Yeah. And so we can jump to conclusions, right? We can mind read. We can fill in the gaps. Our brain likes to do that. It likes to fill in the gaps between what happened and how we feel with evidence that we don't necessarily know is true. And so all of those 16 myths need to be challenged with that truth, with that filter of, is it true? Or is this a story that I'm making up in my head?
So if someone is like, okay, I feel like I'm stuck because I feel that way, just in terms of like, I feel like there's more out there for me, but they don't know what that is. If they're sitting at home right now and they're just like, I feel like life should maybe be more exciting than this, or I'm capable of more than this. I went to school for more than this, but I just don't know how I got. I feel like a lot of women think like, I don't know how I got here.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always advise take the best next step. Just take one step. A lot of times we feel like we have to have the whole staircase climbed, and really just one step, because every step you take, you get to see things from a different view. Right? You get to meet different people. You get to have different opportunities presented to you that you never thought that you would have. And so taking that step towards something that you think you like, that you're passionate about, then it brings you in that direction. And then before you know it, you're looking back going, wait, how did I get here? Right?
And you were saying too, like sometimes it's about knowing the things that you don't want. To do.
Yeah.
I mean, do you just make a list?
Yeah. Well, so I like to tell the story. So I used to teach. I was a teacher years ago, many moons ago. And I was so excited to go into teaching because I love kids and I love families. And I thought, this is perfect for me. And I got in the classroom and I learned really quickly that I did not care about teaching, reading, or math.
I'm glad you didn't just say, I learned really quickly I didn't like kids.
I love kids. And I really loved their families. And I really loved what was was going on in their family system. I loved being able to be a social and emotional support for them. I did not care about teaching them math. And I didn't. My personality, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. And so it means like I love all the fun things. And I did not love staying in a classroom all day. It felt kind of confining to me with the way that I'm wired. And so so I did some searching. I did some personality assessments. I love the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, Strengths Finders, the DISC. There's a bunch of them out there that you can take that will kind of help people understand, like, well, what am I created to do? You know?
Like they just ask you questions about like your interests?
Yes. Yep.
I've done the Enneagram. I actually, are you a big Enneagram fan?
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I had a bad attitude about it because I took the test an embarrassingly amount of times and I kept getting different answers. Or then I would get an answer or a number and I'd go, well, that's kind of me, but it's not really me. And then I think everyone's kind of like this. But I've recently also, like when you just said that, it reminded me, recently took it again and it said I was a 7.
Okay.
But then I was a wing something, and whatever wing it was basically said that like
8 or 6, Well, it depends. 6, yeah.
So it basically was, I'm all for the fun until I find the reason.
Might die.
Right. Yes. and then, but also like, because I'm all for that, but then I also will find all the reasons I shouldn't do it. So
we're exactly the same. So that's me. I'm like, we should go, but wait, what could happen?
Yes. But all these things go wrong. We probably shouldn't go.
And probably not. Exactly.
Yeah. So I felt like when I found the wing aspect of it, it gave me more justification to go, okay, because I'm not 100% a 7 all the time. And I think as moms, we're all 2s to some degree.
And the Enneagram's really layered. It's really, I mean, if you read the original books, they're really big. I mean, there's a lot of meat to it.
Okay.
But yes, we're all, and again, nature versus nurture, right? And so, the Myers-Briggs is really good.
What is that, like personality?
It's personalities. Okay. And you can take all these online. But you can search, if you do your Myers-Briggs, so I'm an ENFJ. So if I search careers for an ENFJ, it's going to say counselor, teacher. It's going to say all these things. It's, it's not going to say
what?
Accountant.
Okay.
Someone working in the tax field, right? So my brain does not do well with numbers or business or things that are not relational. Yeah. So all that to say, I kind of took a step.
Well, I feel like I kind of feel like every woman, I mean, it would be really helpful to do that because...
We've got them on our website too. Actually, we've got links.
We will put them up for sure because I think that's the thing. Like a lot of women don't, and I was saying that to you earlier. For the woman who, I used to feel so envious towards, even like in high school and college, of friends that knew exactly what they wanted to do. And they had that one really specific talent. Like maybe they were an artist or an actor, or they wanted to, I don't know, be a doctor, and they were super smart at science. And I would think like, I don't have that one thing that I've always wanted to be. I always knew I wanted to be an XYZ. And so if you grow up and you don't have that super specific passion, I think it's easy to get into that rut of, I don't really have a goal that's super specific because I don't really have that one thing. Like I'd probably just be fine with doing anything.
Yeah. And it's not too late. Like that's the thing. It's the message is for any woman that is in a season of life where she does not feel like she has her thing, it's not too late to find her thing. I see women that are in their 60s going back and getting degrees in different areas and figuring out what they want to do. You always can. But what matters is that you're doing what you love. And I had a client come in one time. I'm just thinking of her. She came in and she was feeling like she was depressed. Okay. And we found out after doing her Myers-Briggs that she is an ISTJ on the Myers-Briggs, which just means she would be an accountant. She would be your perfect accountant sitting in a cubicle, crunching numbers, not talking to people all day. And she was working in a job like what I do for a nonprofit at a church, was not seeing progress, and was dealing with people all day long, right?
Which and so
she was not, it was hard for her to find her purpose because she wasn't doing the work that she was aligned with. It wasn't where she was supposed to be.
Like we should give everyone this coming out of high school.
I do a lot with teen clients. We do, because it really just gives us a map. And I love doing it with families because it helps us understand our children too.
Yeah, I am like making a mental note to go home and do it with with my kids. I think, I don't know, to me, it seems like it might be a little bit more specific than the Enneagram. But
it's just, they just measure different things, right? So Enneagram measures motivation. Myers-Briggs measures how you prefer to live in the world, your preferences. Strengths Finders measures your strengths. There's just so many different assessments out there.
Do you think, and it made me just think of it when you were saying about the lady, it's like, she's doing all these good works and she's, like people are probably looking at her like, you're doing great. And she's internally going, but like, well, then why am I not happy? Do you think a lot of it comes from like sometimes the stuckness of like the guilt of, well, you have kids. You have a beautiful family.
Why
are you you should be happy. You shouldn't want more. You don't need more. Like, are we kind of programmed to believe we're not supposed to want or we have enough?
Right. It's not virtuous. Right. We're bad people if we want. And that's where I start with everybody going back to, what do you want? What did you want before kids, right? What did you want before marriage? What are your inner longings and dreams and passions? And how can we bring those out in you?
And you can do that and be a mom.
Yes, you can do it all.
Yeah, you don't have to like be a martyr in order to somehow. And then also, what's the scale that we're judging who has enough and who should be happy, who should still want more?
Right. Which goes back to worthiness and who gets to say, right? Who gets to say if you're living your life the way that you should be living your life?
What if you're a woman who has a spouse who is making you feel like, what more do you want? You have enough. Why do you need more? I mean, does that happen a lot?
Sure. Well, and it goes back to personalities and preferences. And, if you've got somebody who doesn't value the same things that you do, then that makes it really difficult. And so that's a lot. I always recommend couples work, couples coaching, couples therapy, all of it. Just to, the great thing about even couples coaching is just getting on the same page, just to say, okay, what is our vision together as a couple? And how do we align that as a team when it's different?
What have you found now that you're empty nesting? Like, have you found just for yourself as a mom or as a woman? I mean, you have your book and you have this program and stuff that you do, but I mean, did you struggle to kind of find your, like, what am I with not just being a mom?
Well, I'm a little different because I camp and live in this, right? I swim in it all day long.
You're assessing yourself all day, every day.
So I've been
hyper aware.
So I did found this group practice called Elevate Moms.
Yeah, talk about that. I would love you to talk about that.
And so I've had this dream for Elevate Moms for a really long time. And it was a place for women to go, for moms to go. Because, we have all the places to bring our kids.
Yes. It's like mom counseling.
Yes. But as moms, we tend to put resources and money towards our kids.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't even think twice. If someone was like, your child needs to be in counseling, or you'd be like, okay, I'm here.
Oh, we'll write the check. I mean, what do they need? Right? I'll write the check.
Yeah.
But if it's about us, we're like, that feels like a lot, or that feels overwhelming. I maybe shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted a place where moms could go to thrive, right? Whether it's something heavy like dealing with depression, anxiety, grief, loss, or something simpler like getting clear about who do you want to be, either within or outside of motherhood, right?
And it's like a group setting?
And it's
virtual.
It's virtual. So we have a group practice. Everybody's got their own offices, but we have online resources and groups that we offer. And we've got therapists, we've got coaches, we've got mom mentors for women who just don't have somebody in their life to walk with them through that season that can kind of pour into them. And so all that to say, this has been something that I've been dreaming about starting for a long time. So when my kids left, I actually, the seven in me was like, okay, it's time.
It's time.
And so it's just been a gift and a joy. But there were lots of seasons. So back to when I was teaching, where I went, I was stuck. I was stuck in the classroom.
You were stuck. Right.
Yeah, this is not for me.
Even though someone might have looked at you and been like, what do you mean? You have a great job. This is what you said you wanted.
Yeah. You've got all the things, but it wasn't fulfilling to me, to my heart. And so I stepped out, and that's when I learned about coaching. Life coaching was a new thing on the scene. This is like, 20 years ago. I'm really dating myself, but I learned about life coaching, and I was so excited to do that because it really felt like, okay, now I can step out. I can work with the families. I don't have to teach math. No offense to the teachers who teach math. We need you.
Bless, because I can even teach my own kids math.
Exactly.
If my kids need math help, they call their brothers at college. They're like, no, I'll just Zoom.
Right. I don't do numbers. I don't do numbers. But
same.
All that to say, like, I'm so grateful for all the teachers out there. It just wasn't my passion and my heart. And so I was able to step outside, do coaching, work with families, help them them become stronger, help them have a map to each other so that they could understand each other. And then through that realized, you know what, I really do have a passion for therapy as well. And I didn't think that I didn't think I'd have good boundaries with the pain and the hurt and the grief of my clients. I was afraid that I would be all consumed and not be able to separate it. And then through my coach training, I actually learned how to do boundaries.
Oh, okay. So you can do boundaries with your clients. Yeah.
And so then I learned how to do it, moved in, and I just, I've been dreaming of this ever since. So
wow.
Yeah.
And then you finally you just did it.
Yep.
You just did it.
Yep.
Well, and that's kind of interesting because you're talking about something over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times women, maybe like, you know, a goal comes into their head and it's fleeting. And then in 6 months from now, they didn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oh, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew this wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's like you put that pressure on yourself if you can't do it right away, that it's not.
Or it has to be perfect.
Yeah.
If I can't do it perfectly, then it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Or if I don't have complete control over it, then it's not worth doing. Yeah. Or if I'm afraid, then I'm not going to lean in. And so it all ties back together.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes people are, and I think you talked about this before, like it's just also we say we're stuck, we say we want more, but are we getting something out of where we are? Like we're getting something out of that fear
it's safe. Right? It's safe, but it's...
Even though we're not happy,
even though we're not
safe?
Happy.
Yeah,
because again, that fear and the unknown. We were actually watching the Truman Show the other day.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Did you ever see it?
Yep.
I mean, it's so old, but our kids wanted to see Seaside,
yes.
Florida.
Yeah,
and
I feel like I showed my kids that for that reason too. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were watching it. And at the very end of the movie, I don't think it's a spoiler alert because it's 20 years old.
I think everybody's seen it. Yeah.
You know, he has to make that decision at the last minute. Do I leave or do I not leave? Right? I'm in this dome. I figured out I'm on this set. Yeah. And the producer, you know, Ed Harris is talking to him and he's saying, Truman, don't go. Stay here. Right. It's safe here. Right? And Truman looks back at him and he's like, he has that like Jim Carrey smile. Yeah. And he leaves. Yeah. And that's why we stay stuck, right? Because we're like, oh, it is scary out there. Yes. That does feel, what's on the other side of that door? What happens if I walk through it? Right. And so we've got to step out again and find out and go, okay, what if something bad happens? Can I handle it? Yes. Yes, I can handle it. Yeah. But the fear of staying here is sabotaging my relationships, my journey in life, you know, my success, my growth, and who I want to be. Yeah.
And how sad to get to the end of your days and think, oh, I always wanted to do this, or I wonder what would have happened if I had done this. But I think you're right. Also, it's like that fear of if I try it and everybody sees me trying, and if I fail, then everybody sees me failing. Right. And we get really caught up in everybody sees me failing. And honestly, you're like, everyone else is honestly like, so what? Who cares? Right. You tried it. That's amazing. At least you tried.
Fail forward. Yeah. I mean, that's it. We have to fail forward. We have to not be afraid to fail. But it's really hard if you had parents who told you that your love was conditional upon you not failing. Right. And so I joke how therapized our kids, you know, are and raised in a counseling.
They're so,
I joke, #counselor mom, they call me. But from the beginning, we're like, take every shot. Like, you miss every shot you don't take. I think it's a Wayne Gretzky quote, you know, take the shot, take the shot, take the shot. We don't care if you make it. We don't care if you fail, like fail. And we've got to give that to our kids. Yeah. And if we don't do a check in our own spirit about what's going on inside and what narrative we have, you know, the messages that ooze out of us, even if we're not saying it, our kids know and they hear it. Yeah. And it comes out, and then they show up in the counseling office with anxiety.
And is it sometimes because we're worried that if they fail on the football field, that someone will look at us like bad parents who raised bad football players?
100%. Yeah. I mean, and that's where we have to do a check. I mean, it's hard to say, but a lot of times, you know, we can get our identity and our kids' identity intertwined. Yeah. And their performance becomes our performance. Just go to a Little League baseball game, right?
Yes.
And
go to any sports game.
Really,
I mean, it is, I went to a lacrosse game last night and I mean, it's, And the thing is, it's like if you want to take that identity with them for the glory,
Yep.
you have to be able to take it with them for the failures.
Yes.
And failure, it's like it became this dirty word.
Yeah.
Somehow it just became, I'm not saying you want to fail at everything, but it somehow just became you could only be the best.
Yeah. Right. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
And so our job is to help our kids. We want them to have resilience, right? We want them to know how to handle the bumps in the road. We want them to know if they leave the Truman Show set, how to handle what's on the other side of that. And they do that through failure, right? They do that through going, ooh, I just fell down. Now I'm going to get back up. And we're not catastrophizing it, because we can go two ways, right? We can be the helicopter parent that's over enmeshed with our children saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's horrible when you fall down here. I'll wipe your knees, right? Or we can go to the other extreme where we're like, you know what, suck it up.
Right.
And there's no comfort.
So where's the middle ground?
Yeah, the middle ground looks like, hey, I saw you fall and that looked really hard. And I'm here for you. How can I serve you? What do you need from me, right? I'm not going to pick the bike up and it depends on their age, of course, right? But I'm not going to coddle you, but I'm also going to make sure that you're seen and that you're known and that you know that you can turn to me for comfort. From cradle to grave, we need our parents to be there to comfort us and to help us self-soothe and regulate our nervous system. That's how we get back in our window of tolerance.
Yeah, because you even were saying that you still need from your parents. Yeah. Which you needed
always
years and years ago. And we underestimate, I think, how much your parents' approval is still important to you no matter how old that you get.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times, again, seeing sports parents sitting on the sideline criticizing their kids. And our sentence should be, I love to watch you play.
Yes, we get that. We get those emails all the time from the coach. Okay, so what about the parent who then says, that's not how real life works. I need to set them up to be successful. There's no point me just telling them and I've definitely heard parents say second place might as well be 10th place. Or if you lose, all that means is you didn't win, right? There is no joy. There's no whatever. How do you, as a parent, kind of navigate that? I really want them to try to be their best. And I want to celebrate when they're successful. But I also, they know they did poorly when they get in the car. Right?
But it can't, our praise can't be dependent upon their performance. If that makes sense, right? Whether they have a good game or a bad game, they need us because it's it's attachment. It goes back to attachment in psychology. They need us to be there for comfort, for safety, for protection, right? And they already know they did poorly. They're beating themselves up.
Even if they didn't try their hardest and still did badly, they still need you to be there for them.
Yes. Yes. I mean, effort is something that we want modeled. Again, we going back to, you miss every shot you don't take. Well, take the shots and set yourself up to take good shots, right? Do what you need to do to get enough sleep, to hydrate, to, fuel your body, whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, our love for them cannot be tied into their performance. It just can't. That's why they have a coach. Right. And so in the real world, other people will give us, we'll have natural consequences from our boss, right? From our roommates who say, clean your stuff up, right? From, anybody that we encounter. It doesn't need to be from our parents.
Right. I know. Now I'm literally replaying every sports game because I am definitely guilty of, feeling like maybe they didn't play hard enough or maybe whatever, and getting in the car and, kind of don't say anything. Well, they're not saying anything. So I guess I'm going to be the one that says it. And they do. They know. I know, Mom. I know, Mom. But you always get those emails. And I do think that we have always been the parents who are whether you play in college or not. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If you want to play, play. If you don't want to play on a Friday night, don't play on a Friday night.
Right.
Like like your worth is not, I think that was something we always tried to tie up in them.
Your worth is not tied.
Yes, because you are one fumble, broken leg, torn ACL away from that being done. And so who are you if you are not that athlete?
That's it. Well, we are living in a society right now where we have bought the lie that all of our kids are going to play professional sports.
100%.
And so we're getting them private coaching lessons at 3.
Yes.
And they have to pick their sport by 5. And
oh my gosh.
It's too much pressure. It's anxiety.
I heard someone say the other day, and so we were not a baseball family. That was the one sport we did not play. And someone was telling me how their child was, I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade, so like 10, and how he plays on like a travel baseball team, and how another boy in the class's mom had like put out to all the moms, like, hey, we're wanting to get into baseball. Like, is there a team that we could join? And all these other moms were like, oh, it's too late for you. Like
nice try.
That ship has sailed. We have found our team. We are traveling. And I was like, he's 10. He could be the next Babe Ruth. Like, you don't know. That is, I mean, they are written off. They have already, these moms have already put in the work. And I was just like, it's not baseball alone. It is.
No, it is every sport.
Yes.
And the amount of people, the amount of kids that are actually going to play professional sports
are like nothing.
And then the next it would be like, well, so that they can get a scholarship.
Right.
Well, okay, so then what? Right? I mean, that's the thing. We have to go at the end of the day, then what? Well, like our job.
Then what? That's a great question.
Right.
Then what?
Our job is to raise functioning adults.
Because if you have put all your effort and the value on their performance, then you're raising adults and you're raising moms who believe
that they have to put the same pressure on their kids, that their kids also have to perform. Right. And a lot of times I ask people, like, when your child doesn't perform well, is it about your sadness for them, or is it about you? Right? And most of the time it's about us.
Yes.
And if we can just let our kids enjoy being kids and enjoy being 10 and learning to play baseball, then we are helping them. But when we put that pressure, again, that, we are creating anxiety in them, and they don't want to disappoint us. I don't want to disappoint my parents, and I'm 50.
Right. Are you someone who believes in like vision boards, manifestation, all that? You are. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone I keep speaking to lately who is like wise about all this, all say the same thing. And I'm like, I wish I started doing vision boards at like 20.
Yeah, I love them.
I
mean, they're not something, I don't take a lot of time to do them.
Okay.
I wish I did them more.
If someone were like, okay, I want to do a vision board, what does that look? Is it it's a physical?
There's lots of different ways to do them. The way that I recommend is just, again, casting a vision of what, go through a magazine. There's these great magazines. I can't think of what they're called. At Barnes & Noble, I have a client that goes and gets a Bella Vita or something like that.
You can text me and I'll put it in the show notes. Because now I'm like, what magazine is this?
And they're the most beautiful pictures, right? And they're just soothing and warm and inspiring. And they've got neat quotes. And she takes them and she creates this beautiful board with it. And it's really just manifesting, what do I want life to look like? Again, on the other side of fear. What could
would
I
it be
into?
Something though, like a car? Could you do? Would you do that? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. We pay attention to what we see in front of us. Like if you think about it, if
where do you keep your vision board?
Well, I keep mine in my closet.
Okay. Someone else I spoke to said she also kept hers in her closet. Maybe I'll keep mine in my closet.
Just depends.
Okay.
It just depends.
Like on a wall?
Yeah, just kind of like something to look at. But if you're shopping for a car and, say you're shopping for like a white Lexus SUV, right? All of a sudden, you're going to start noticing white Lexus SUVs when you're driving on the road.
That's true,
because that's what we're paying attention to. And so we really do, whatever we focus on is what comes up to mind. And that's, again, paying attention to what is it that we want? What are we created for? Who are we here to be? What is our purpose? And what could it look like? And it might be that you're in the diaper trenches still, and that you are, feeding babies and not sleeping through the night. But there is a time.
There's a time,
that's going to come. It doesn't have to be now. It can be down the road. But to at least just know this is where I want to sail. Yeah. I use that ship metaphor a lot.
Yes, tell us about, I love the ship metaphor. When I heard you say it, I know I've used it with my kids. Like,
yes, yeah.
Talking about
just going, okay, where do we want to sail? What island do we want to sail to? So I use it a lot when I'm distinguishing between therapy and coaching.
Okay.
And so, therapy, we're helping people whose ships are sinking, who have holes in the rudder. Maybe they hit a massive iceberg and they're sinking quickly. Maybe they just have little holes that they've kind of ignored, right, from their family of origin all the years.
Yeah.
And so they're not sinking quickly. But nevertheless, water's coming on board. And then, we're just helping heal. We're helping patch up those holes so that they can deal with, again, the grief, the trauma, the loss. And then once we have the ship ready to sail, the question becomes, well, where do you want to sail?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
Because you would never just get on a cruise
You wouldn't.
not knowing where you're going.
No.
Yeah.
And so when you're on that ship, what are the resources? We always look, what are the resources that you have on your ship? And that goes back to personality assessments.
Okay.
What are your strengths? How are you created? How are you wired, right? My resources are going to be very different than in the accountant's resources, right? And so what values do you have? Our values steer us. Our values direct us into the area that we want to sail. And then which island do you want to go to? Like, why do you want to go to that island? Maybe you want to go to that island instead. And so just getting clarity is one of the most important things when it comes to that vision, right?
And then what you need to put on your ship.
Yeah. And then what do you put on your ship? What do you bring?
What's going to sink you?
Right. And what's going to sink you? Toxic friendships will sink you. We are the summary of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. Yeah. And if we are bringing toxic people, toxic friendships with us on the ship, it's going to sink. Yeah. And so it's paying attention to how do I have how do I take care of the ship? How do I feed myself well? How do I put boundaries against negative impacts in my life, right? Negative relationships, just even negative social media sites, that don't feed me, right?
Unfollow.
Unfollow.
How do we know that you just said something that made me think of a question? How do we know if a friendship is toxic?
I think you know. You know what I mean?
You're like, you already know. I think you know
because every time a text pops up from them, you're like, you feel it, or it's this.
Is it possible for a friendship to have been a good friendship at one point and to turn toxic?
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't always have to have been toxic. Yeah.
No. We all have different seasons and we all go through different changes in life and friendships. I've prepared my kids early on, like friendships have seasons and, you've got your lifelong friendships that really are those core people that that you can turn to. And then you've got other friendships that are going to come and go. Yeah. And to just budget and prepare for that and kind of have margin for it. Yeah. But toxic friendships, you cringe or you find yourself not being true to who you are in order to not disappoint them. Right.
Right. Or to, what do they say? Like where you shrink yourself to fit into them, to make them feel more comfortable.
Absolutely. Or you violate what's good for you. You violate your own boundaries, what you know in your heart is right for you to make sure that they're not upset with you or mad or there aren't any consequences from it.
Yeah.
And so,
Which could be what? Jealousy, all that stuff?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Jealousy, just passive aggressiveness. Yeah. Exclusion. I'm going to, you didn't answer my text, so I'm going to invite these 2 people and I'm not going to include you.
See, it doesn't just happen in middle school.
Oh, it goes on and on and on.
You read up Brené Brown earlier. Her book, The Power of Vulnerability, is like one of my favorite books. And I don't know if you heard her talk about the marble jar for relationships.
No.
So she talked about relationships and she was talking about trust. And she just talks about it in female friendships. And she says how like people will say, well, I'm going to trust her till she gives me a reason not to. She said, and I always am like, why would you do that?
Right.
What a silly decision to make. Why are we just blindly letting these people like have all of our time? And she said, I like to equate it to a marble jar in a classroom with a teacher. Yeah. And every time the classroom does something like a good behavior, they get a marble. And if they get to the top, then they get a prize. But alternatively, every time they do a bad behavior, a marble gets taken out. So getting to the top is a series of good behaviors outweighing the bad behaviors. And if it's just bad behaviors, you never get the prize, which should be your friendship. And so she said, like all relationships should be transactional like that.
Yes.
And I just was like, it's so simple, but it is so true. I think like in female friendships, if I look at my relationships, like nobody's ever going to be perfect, right?
No.
Like, well, I'll make mistakes in friendships and vice versa. But if you look at your friendships like the marble jar, I don't know.
Well, it's trust and time.
Yes,
you know,
trust and time. Yes.
And really finding those safe people. I work with teens a lot, helping them find like, what does a safe friend look like? You know, and it is that transparency. It's believing the best in each other. My closest friendships know that I can drop balls left and right. I mean, if you saw how many text messages I have unread on my phone right now, but they don't take it personally. They know that I'm just running a million miles a minute and that it's not about them. Yeah. But we've developed that safety over time.
Yes. You know? Yeah, I think that's key. It's not about them. Yeah, it's about you.
Right, and being okay to disappoint people. Sorry, going back to that, like it's just so important that we're okay disappointing people and let them experience the consequences of whatever behavior they're showing up with, you know, when it comes to toxicity.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can find you by getting your book Unstuck, because we only talked about 6 myths.
Yes.
And so there's another 10 that they can go and find. Yeah. Finding their passion, finding their goals. And then for your course, it's not a course, it's a group. Right? You call it a group or a course?
At Elevate Moms, we've got groups. Yeah.
Okay. So Elevate Moms is the groups. Okay. So they can find you there on Instagram, and we'll put you all up. And anywhere else they can find you?
That's great. Yeah. Just kimanderson.life would be my website. And then elevatemoms.com is our group.
And I love your Instagram page. You're full of ton of great information.
I love
just
to
for
share.
Moms. Yeah.
Yeah. I love to share.
And I think as moms, we love to.
Yes.
We love to receive that information. So. Well, I thank you so much. And I think that a lot of women are probably at home going, I think I might be stuck.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. Yes. You can get unstuck at any age, right? That's the key. It doesn't matter.
Any age, any season. Yeah. It's just one little step.
Can you be stuck, get unstuck, and get stuck again?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's not that you're like, oh, I was there and now I'm back out of it.
No, you hit an iceberg. If you hit an iceberg, you're stuck.
Okay.
Right? I mean, life throws crazy things at us.
Yes.
And so it's easy to get stuck again.
Don't stay there.
Don't stay there. Reach out for help. Find somebody to walk with you, you know, outside of it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kim Anderson, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
That was fun.